What? Right, I'm not paying attention. I'm texting while we are hanging out. Boo me. Big no no. I'll put my phone down. That, I think, as a expectation or like social etiquette thing is a bit unrealistic given that people's anxiety levels as well as attention span and focus can seriously waver, and being able to do social engagement and interaction constantly can be really draining actually, and hard to do. I know we are best friends, but also just saying. You do have my mostly undivided and focused attention now that you've asked for it. Yes, do you like them? I made them. Did you see? I've been posting on my Instagram story basically asking people if they do want them, they can DM me. For these ones, there's literally only like a single dangly, not even a pair, just like the single available. Yes. There's this one, and it's 15 for the single earring. And then there's also the Leviathan cross that I've made. And I think there's a pair of those left. Yeah, they've mostly gotten all bought up, which I'm very pleased with, as you can tell. But yeah, the Leviathan cross ones, I can show you them later, another time. But you like these? Yeah, they're like double Venus. Yes, it's very me, very gay. That all being said, stop detracting from the conversation. I know neither of us really wants to have it, but it's important to talk about your partner problems. I know you don't mind necessarily being vulnerable with me about these things because, well, I find like I wonder really why people come to me with like their relationship problems, because I almost nearly universally will tell people that they should just break up with their partner. And that, I think, like, to be honest, I'm in a space right now where I've been thinking a lot about like disposability, not even in the the sense of like famous people, because that's a different conversation really entirely. And often the people who have ended up doing the most harm don't end up, like, they don't end up having to take accountability or even really feeling punished or like really feeling any remorse, or nothing materially changes for them, you know what I mean? The thing I'm talking about is like community and people that you know, as well as like how this maps onto like structures like the prison industrial complex, and how we're having to think about, like always, but like right now in this time especially, we're really having these conversations, right, about punishment and shame and carcerality, or like disappearing people, as a concept, not necessarily like killing people, but like cutting people out of your life, for example, or like putting people and punishing them. A lot of the times, especially with like how prison even works, is it's a lot of falsified charges and like especially incredibly racist, horrible, like layers of really, really ridiculous, like deeply, deeply dangerous ideas about who is a criminal, um, and like racially marking like any kind of behavior as being criminal, or like even, I'm going down a rabbit hole. I'm an Aquarius. This happens. But you know what I mean? The ways that the police and prisons completely and totally, from their like very foundation, are racist, have been racist, continue to be racist, are deeply violent structures, right? And how we need to stop investing at all in those ways of thinking about dealing with societal problems, right? But also thinking about on a more like smaller, not necessarily that relationships aren't part of, or that like individually incarcerated people are like large scale things, but in terms of like even like how you think about your relationships with other people, right? Partners or otherwise, right? Like even siblings, or even like for me, I've been thinking a lot about like how I've been dealing with my dog's behavioral problems. And even though I've worked with lots and lots and lots of dogs in my life, I'll notice when I get frustrated because she's acting up, like 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 crating her, or like giving her like a timeout, or like yelling at her for like just like, even if it's something that's really really bad, like there are different ways of responding to different problems in your life that don't involve like punishment or shame. And this has been something that I've been thinking about a lot, or like a lot in like various realms and aspects of things. And so like the idea of carcerality, or like disposing of people or like punishing as an immediate impulse, I definitely feel it. You know what I mean? Like, that vengeance as a person who has a Scorpio moon, I will say, I have like complicated feelings about all of this. And I don't think that there's necessarily like at all like one good solution, or that punishment never ever 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 makes any sense. But I think the immediate sort of jump to blaming or accusing someone or cutting someone out, I feel like that's like almost like too familiar for me. And I think for me, it's like a part of my coping is a bit like, if somebody's doing something that makes me uncomfortable, I need distance, or I need them to be out of my life forever if it's really bad. I feel like there's nothing necessarily wrong with that as part of a solution, especially if someone like continually hurts you, or like sometimes needing space is necessary. I don't think that it's like a bad thing all of the time, but I do think that there are ways that it can be a bit self-sabotagey, or like sometimes you read a situation wrong, or like what needs to actually happen, right, is like having a really difficult conversation about expectations in a relationship, for example. Or like even with my dog, like she can't like talk, right? She can't explain why she went through the trash and like dug everything up, or went in my parents' room multiple times in the night. Like, she can't explain why she did that, but getting her to stop doing that is more about supporting her and giving her stimulus, or keeping her in a place where I can see her at night, where she doesn't feel anxious or like has space to act up because she's bored, or has to pee out of anxiety, you know what I mean? So like thinking about the ways that everyone, like absolutely everyone, deserves like support, and that like bad behavior or things that are marked as bad usually happen out of like a lack of support, or like needs not being met in some way or some fashion. Like even the idea that people are inherently bad, like, is messy, and not really, it doesn't usually show everything that's going on. I will say that there are definitely people in this world who will do things even like knowing all of the consequences, that will just do things that are completely evil, exploiting other people, stealing people's information, like, but those people are usually people that aren't in community. Like, it's usually like people in power, very very like powerful, famous people, people with lots of money, you know. Those often are the people who, like, because of how much wealth and fame or status that they have, are like completely cushioned and like feel like totally separate from everybody else on this space rock. You know what I mean? They're like completely disconnected from like pain or suffering that other people face, and that's a completely different like conversation, because the situation is different, right? That being said, I'm not saying that you need to stick with your partner if they're making you feel unsafe or like unheard constantly at all. I'm just working through my thoughts and my like how I usually respond when people come to me with their problems, like in their relationships, or like how their partner is talking to them or disrespecting them, or you know, not seeing them or meeting their needs, right? I think a lot of the times people don't know how to have these conversations with one another, or end up hurting one another. For me, I feel like something that I do a lot, like quite a lot, is I like let a lot of things slide instead of like bringing something up at the beginning, or when I notice it, or when it first makes me uncomfortable. And there comes a time where I just get fed up and just so tired and upset, because it feels like the other person is like actively wanting me, or like actively disrespecting me, you know. And certainly there have been times where there are things that people did that were really really just not right, but I feel like things would be better even in those relationships where someone definitely should have known better, or like they should have checked in with me, but those times would have been better, or I would have been hurt less, or they could have changed their behavior even if I had said something, or if I wasn't so scared to bring something up, and then it ended up just hurting me in the end, you know, because I wanted things to work out, or I didn't want to feel like I was the like a needy or overwhelming person. And I feel like feeding those fears or insecurities just completely like is not honoring your boundaries or what you need, and then it just makes you, and like it just makes you feel like resentful and upset. And a big part of that is like being in a space where you communicate things, and it's really hard because communicating is really hard, and a lot of like obstacles around like honest communication exist, or are like sort of like societally pushed as like how you need to present yourself to other people, especially in partnerships, which I think is gross and I hate it. But like even as a person who is critical of it, and can see it, I'm still affected by it. You know what I mean? It's not something that just because you know that it's messy or messed up, even, or problematic, that it just doesn't affect you at all. Like, that's hardly ever the case, like, really. But that's just something that I've been thinking about a lot. And so, I don't know, spill. Given those sort of rambly processing bits that I've just sort of like rambled and raved on about for ever, but you know. Mm. Right. So you've been feeling a bit jealous and insecure, right? Is this something that you've talked about with him? Mm-hmm. Ah, I feel like it can be really difficult, and I like it's important that you've brought it up before, but like I think it's also important and good of you to sort of come to me to process a bit before you want like you decided to talk to them about it this time. It's not wrong to reach out to them about it when you're feeling things, but sometimes I feel like you can be a bit, not you specifically, but sometimes like in general, you can be a bit like blamey or like accusatory when you're like in your jealous or envious feelings. And sometimes it ends up like you end up having a really like explosive or like you, because you're so, I think that you're like your emotions are really really important and need to be honored, but when you're carrying it and trying to have a conversation while you're feeling it, sometimes you can end up hurting them or yourself because you're like putting unfair like narratives about what's going on even before you even know what's happening. Because sometimes with being jealous, you'll like see something a lot of the times, like you'll like your partner is like doing something with friends, or even like in like a polyamorous situation, you'll even see like your partner like with another cutie or sweetie or another partner or whatever, and you'll feel like left out, or like they don't love you or care about you, um, or they're just like, or they're having so much more fun without you. Like those feelings that like sort of bubble up because of insecurities that you have. And I feel like a good thing to ask for when you are like in that space is specifically not being accusatory, or like just literally asking them like, and maybe having a conversation before they leave, or when you're together, or when you're just talking like about is it okay if you give me affirmations like once when you're hanging out with somebody new or somebody else? Like, really thinking about what things you need that will be affirming and will be helpful for you. But in this space where it's sort of already happened, like you can ask for like something like, can you tell me something cute? Can you remind me why you care about me? You know, things like that. It could be something like that. I think it's also helpful to like write out or journal out or like do some sort of like mental dump of like how you're feeling instead of like repressing it and feeling like evil or bad for having jealous feelings, because I definitely feel like that. I definitely get like, I blame myself a lot when I'm experiencing any kind of like envy or jealousy or like insecurity. I feel like really like gross and bad, and like I should not have those feelings at all, or like I'm not allowed to, and so I'm not allowed to talk about them or talk to my partner or partners about those feelings. And so they just sort of fester and get like quite unmanageable, and then it becomes a whole thing. Not even necessarily for everyone involved, because for me, I'll tend to repress things for a long, 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 long time. And then, like, eventually it probably will affect everything. But that's a me thing. But yes, so I suggest writing it out and being like letting yourself really work through those feelings and thoughts before like having that conversation, or like before like you even have that conversation, saying like stating like, I've been having some jealous feelings and I want to talk about them, or like in a place where you're determining like how we could talk to each other through like conflict or like hard feelings or uncomfortable feelings, like having a conversation before that where you set up like, can we have a conversation about this specific like topic or theme, so that you both can sort of like take some time to like think about things and like assess how things are, so you can come in staying on topic and also being really like mindful of each other and what you want from your relationship with one another, and like really trusting in like growing together, which is hard. It's really scary, but I feel like the more you do it, the better things are. Like, relationships really are work. And I feel like the idea that things are just supposed to like always feel good is ridiculous, and just like it just sets people up to have failed relationships or failed like connections, because you just can't like deal with conflict of any kind. And conflict often is just like where things need to grow or change, and if it's not growing, that's not a relationship, is it? Like, it's going to move, things are going to change, and in order to like navigate those changes or directions that you're going, you have to be able to talk to each other. And it's really hard to do, of course, but and it's like so much easier for me to say it than to practice it, you know what I mean? But I just wanted to remind you, and also just chat at you a bit to distract you, but it's gonna, like, things are gonna happen, things are gonna change, and there are choices that you have, right? There are so many things that you can say and do. You still have agency. Like, what you have to say and what you want in this relationship really, really, really matters. And that's something that you need to know. And also, like, I want you to move through this being able to trust or like have like good faith in your person. And if they end up not being worth it, or like not wanting to try or do this work with you, then that says something, you know? It might be scary to be in that place, but you have to be able to have these conversations with people. Yeah. I know. All right. Let's go get some ice cream or something. Come on.